Hi, this is Susan Mays, and I am doing my presentation of my case, Betty J. Monette versus Manatee Memorial Hospital. So what is the agenda for my conversation? We're going to talk a little bit about the Workers' Compensation Act, and then we're going to do a review of Betty Monette's case against Manatee Memorial. And then finally, I'll wrap up with an author analysis and my opinion, basically, some thoughts there. So let's start out with the Workers' Compensation Act, Florida statute. Is in the Florida statute. In order for an injury to be compensatable, there needs to be three key elements. One, there needs to be an accident, and it needs to occur in the course of employment and finally arising out of that employment, so some connection to the employment. Our Florida statute is such that we have 30 days to report our injury from the time that it happens, and we have up to 2 years to file a petition for benefits. Both of those have some exceptions in the fine print. And then finally, the benefits that are offered are comprised of medical care or expenses, and you can get total or partial disability. So if you are totally disabled from doing your job, you could get total disability. And then if you can do your job, but maybe not the same job, because of your incapacitation, or your disability, you can get partial disability. And then finally, impairment, which is for those injuries that are lifelong. So something has happened that you'll have to deal with forever. So the case, Betty's case. Who was Betty? And so Betty was an environmental services team member that worked in the lab, third floor surgery, and the ER. So she was not clinical. However, she did work in clinical care areas. And as each of you probably gets every year, we get a memo offering the flu shot for free. So this is not uncommon. Betty's case was in 1988. So that's going way back, but there was a routine memo that came out offering the free flu shots, and they were recommended for the employees to take advantage of them. So Betty had worked in hospitals for years. She was an environmental services team member for years. She had gotten this memo, and she would routinely get the shot. And had never had an adverse reaction to the shot in the past. So this year was, she went and she clocked in one day, went to the ER, got the shot, and it hurt really bad when she got the shot. And she told the nurse that gave her the shot, and then she subsequently told her supervisor as well that the shot had hurt. As time goes on, she can't move her arm, and she develops what they call frozen shoulder, meaning she couldn't move her shoulder at all, so she could not work. She couldn't do her job at all. So she files a workers' compensation claim with her employer, and in reviewing the claim, they agree with the medical opinion that she did have an adverse reaction, severe adverse reaction to the shot. But they disputed the fact that it was because it was a benefit from the employer, that it was a benefit to Betty and also as part of her employment in protecting both her and the potential patients that she could come in contact with from the flu. So they didn't see the connection there with work. So they denied the claim. So Betty took it to the next level, which was the Office of the Judges of Compensation Claims. So here, the judge had a hearing, and the health services manager testified at the hearing that the shot was offered to employees that were and recommended for those that were at high risk, which Betty did have a record of chronic pulmonary disease. So she was in fact a high risk employee. And the health services manager agreed that it was a benefit to the hospital for people not to get sick, or employees not to get sick, for reduced absenteeism, but she stated clearly that that was not the intent of the flu vaccination program. And then finally, she testified that she did not feel, or they did not feel as though healthcare workers or healthcare employees were at any greater risk than the general population of getting the flu. So the judge reviewed the case, and in reviewing the case, he relied on the Elizabeth Carnes case, which was a light case in that Elizabeth Carnes received a typhoid shot and had a severe reaction to the typhoid shot. But the reason that she got the shot was it was a time when a hurricane, she was a salesperson for a shopping center, and they had recently had a hurricane, and after the hurricane, there was reason to believe that the public water supply for the shopping center might have been contaminated. And so the employer started to offer these shots to protect employees from potential contamination from the water supply. So that, in that case, how that case differed in this one with his comparison to Betty was that he couldn't find that risk. He couldn't tie it to the absence of risk to the employment, because the health services manager had basically said there was no greater risk for the healthcare workers than the general population with the flu. So there was no causal, quote, there was no causal relationship, so he denied her claim. So Betty took it to the next level, which was the Florida First District Court of Appeal. And this judge, in considering the JCC's ruling, felt that he had not considered the alternate theory of it being compensatable as it flowed as a natural consequence of employment. So he said that, the health services manager did say it was a benefit to high-risk team members, and Betty was one of those high-risk team members. And she was doing it to protect both herself and the patients. By nature of being in a healthcare environment, she felt as though that was the right thing to do, and it was protecting both her and the patients that she was around or could be exposed to. So he actually reversed the decision and found in favor of Betty. So my author analysis and opinion, I do have a personal connection to this. Like many of you, I'm a non-clinical team member that does enter patient care areas potentially. I'm in the hospital. I'm in a healthcare environment. And in 1988, there was strong urgency with this annual memo that they wanted all team members to get the flu shot, even if you were non-clinical. And now in today's day and age, they actually have policies. It's required, unless for all team members, unless you have some sort of medical or religious exception to the rule. So I also coincidentally have suffered from a frozen shoulder, and I will tell you, it hurts and it happens fast. And I went through probably 6 weeks of therapy, physical therapy, just to get the movement back in my shoulder. So I could connect with her in that case too. So the criteria, nobody challenges throughout that process, no one challenged the fact that it was an accident, and they felt as though it had occurred at work. I think where the conflict and difference of opinion came in was the review around the arising out of employment, that third key element. And I agree with both Betty and the Florida District Court of Appeal in that by nature of what we do and as healthcare workers in a healthcare environment, getting that inoculation or that flu shot or immunization is in the best interest of protecting both ourselves and the patients that we serve. So that's by nature of where we work. That criteria is met, in my opinion. So then I wanted to fast forward to COVID-19, right? There is no shot right now, but I can guarantee you, if we develop a shot, that it will be made available to team members, and there will be inoculations. And if you have an adverse reaction to that, it will be, it'll satisfy that third element as well. So interesting times. I feel severely empathetic to those clinicians that are at the bedside, that are putting their lives at risk every day by taking care of these COVID patients. So, what happens if they get sick? What happens if they're out? What happens if they die? Because we don't have a cure. We don't have a shot. We don't have a fix. So it brings to light just the impact or the consideration of what both clinical and non-clinical team members or employees risk every day by going to work and servicing patients. So interesting times, but I think it really kind of brings home what we do and the risk associated with that, and why workers' compensation is important. So with that, that is the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it.